Well, I'll tell you, back when COVID was going on, I got a call from a hospital up in Oregon. They were running out of places to put people that had passed away. So we took a trailer up there, a refrigerated trailer, because that's what we haul, dropped it off, and they filled it full of corpses, if I guess, and then we had to haul it away. That's pretty, that's pretty crazy, man.
You're listening to Buff Speak, the official podcast of the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business at West Texas A&M University. I am Dr. Nick Gerlich, your host, as we meet up with the thought leaders making an impact today. In my many years at WT, I have taught thousands of students, both in the classroom and online. And with that many names and faces to remember, you have to do some pretty amazing things to stand out. It takes an energy level that is always pushing the needle as far as it'll go. And it takes faith that your ideas are going to pan out and that you're going to make money somehow. It takes a person who grabs the bull by the horns and makes the bull work for him. Of course, I'm talking about an entrepreneur, that person who is willing to assume risk as a student first and then in the professional world. I've seen my fair share of those through the years, but they are still rare among the thousands. My guest today is Shane Redline, who earned his BBA in marketing at WT back in 1999 and then his MBA here in 2001. Shane is a tireless businessman who founded Jack's Transport in Amarillo on basically a wing and a prayer and has grown the company so rapidly that it is now one of the fastest growing trucking firms in the entire state. Shane, where did you get that entrepreneurial gene? Does this run in your family or were you just born with it?
No, I would say that, I've always been a guy that, that knows how to take a dime and turn it into a dollar. And nowhere, going through college or high school, if I was, selling cars on the side or motorcycles or whatever it might be, I just, tried to figure out a way to make some money. And so, my grandparents who I grew up with worked at Sears Roebuck and Montgomery Ward's little retail stores. And so it's just kind of always been, something that I've grabbed onto mainly out of necessity. You got to figure out how to make some money, and that's pretty much where it's come from.
So tell us how you got your start in the trucking business. Your website tells an interesting tale of kind of humble beginnings. Surely this story is worth telling.
Man, I'll be honest with you. So I got into, I went to work for a company called ASCO Equipment, and it was back in like '05 through '09 when the economy was it was roaring, man. We were building biodiesel plants and dairies and Bell Helicopter and cheese plants and all this stuff in the area. So I definitely had the economy on my side. But I was a rental equipment salesman, and we couldn't deliver equipment fast enough. And so what I did was I went out and I made a deal with an outside trucking company in the area, and I made a deal with them to haul our equipment. And about every quarter we would meet, and we would negotiate what the rate was going to be to haul the equipment to deliver it to the customer, and that'd be backhoes and forklifts and things like that. And really, I got a call one day from the inside office that said, "Hey, our the trucking company we've been using is going up on our rate." And I said, "Well, we renegotiate in 2 weeks. Just tell them to hold off on raising our rate." And they told me, well, they just couldn't do that. They were going up. And so I went back to Amarillo, Texas. I was at a meeting in Lubbock, and I called the guy. I said, "What do you mean you're going to go up on our rate?" "Well, fuel's just so high. It's what we have to do." And I said, "But we have a deal." He said, "Well, tough." I said, "No problem. Sounds good." So I met a gentleman that was, so really what I did was I called their head guy. I met him at the McDonald's on Tecla Street. I said, "Hey, you ready to start your own trucking company?" And he said, "Absolutely." And so I hired the guy I was using. I hired his head guy. And long story short, we bought went and bought a '08 Dodge Dually and a flatbed trailer, and Jack's Transport was born that day. And that's really how we started. So it's, a guy didn't keep his word, and that's why I'm sitting here today, which I guess it worked out good for me.
So this was not the result of some, exquisite marketing research study or anything like this. It was just somebody giving you a raw deal. Huh?
100%. Yeah, I had no plan, no business plan. No, I'd never been in business for myself, and I just decided that if the guy wasn't going to keep his word, then I would just take the business over and I guess become his competitor. And today that guy is still around, and he probably has about 6 or 8 semi trucks, and we have about 380. So I think we might have won that deal.
Yeah, I think so, just a little bit. So
That's right.
how hard is it to get started in this industry? I mean, it's not like trucking is anything new because trucks have been plying American roadways for a century.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's very hard, and obviously, I see I have multiple friends that be, bankers that have become my friends, and they tell me about different, people starting businesses and what have you, and there's the guy who wants to start a restaurant or wants to a landscape business or what have you. Those are the barriers of entry are pretty easy. When you decide to go into business, in the trucking business, well, you've got to go buy a truck first, and those are $40 to $180,000, and then you got to buy a trailer, and then you got to have insurance, and it is very, very tough. And so I'll just tell you, I paid some pretty high interest rates when the bank told me they wouldn't loan me money. I paid some pretty high interest rates to private investors, and to get going. And they're the guys that got me here, and so it's definitely was very, very, very tough.
I've heard it said many times that Amarillo is America's biggest truck stop. Once Road Ranger and Bucky's finish their projects on the east side of town, there will be 7 major truck stops and travel centers within only a few miles. So that pretty much validates that little cliche about Amarillo. But it also attests to the volume of trucks going through here east and west on I-40. I mean, that's a major transcontinental highway. Did this play into your decision to base your company right here?
Well, obviously, I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, and graduating from West Texas A&M. I mean, this has always been home. I moved to Dallas for about 9 months, then I moved right back to Amarillo, and obviously, I didn't give it a lot of thought. I mean, I'm from here, and what's great about what you just said is, we are right in the middle, of the country. We've got this interstate that runs through here, and there's our biggest business. We're in the food hauling business, and we haul. There's 9 major meat packing plants within a 220-mile radius. The Tysons and Cargills, Cavaness, National Beef, Seaboard. So you've got these multi-billion-dollar meat packing plants right here, along with cheese plants, and the amount of freight here is just absolutely ridiculous in a good way. And so it really was just a great spot to be. And when lots of this is as the economy's a little bit tough right now, with inflation and interest rates. We haul food for a living, and we have too much business, which is a great problem to have. Whereas you see some of the guys that haul, flatbed freight, or they're in the construction type stuff. They're kind of struggling right now, and we have 52 new trucks coming in the next 6 months, and so so definitely the where we're located definitely plays a big role into our success.
So how does Jack's Transport work? Do you own all of the trucks operating under your corporate banner, or do you have other owner-operators working with you, for you? I mean, you just mentioned you have 380 right now, and your website says you got 400 trailers. I imagine that number needs to be updated. And how are revenues these days? I mean, you obviously ramped up fast.
Yes, that's a great question. I'll tell you why. So obviously, I love making money with other people's money, OPM, right? Other people's money. And so what that means is we have about 170 trucks that we lease from Penske Leasing. We've all heard of Penske. We've seen them all around the country. Roger Penske's very successful, owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it took me probably up until about 4 years ago to stop owning the trucks and move to a lease program. It's all inclusive. I don't have to worry about when it breaks down. We have our on-time performance is so much better, and so anyways, we and then we have about 200 or so owner operators, so they own the truck. And something that we've done in this country that not many people will do is we've helped these owner operators come in with it's just a guy who's got a CDL and he's got one truck, and we help him get 2 trucks and 3 trucks. And I have multiple guys that have 20, 30, 40, 50 trucks now. One guy operations, and these are all guys who came in as just we've helped them become entrepreneurs. And so leasing trucks has been great. Our balance sheet is not just sinking in debt because of that. And then again, we're helping other guys build their trucking company with inside our company as well.
So you mentioned food. You also mentioned corpses. Is there anything else you haul?
We haul everything. We haul everything. Really, we leave these meat packing plants in this area. And for example, we'll use California as an example. We haul to California probably 15 to 25 times a week. And there's a ton of produce in California, and we'll haul produce back. For those who are listening that might have seen an Allsup's convenience store before, the famous Allsup's burrito that comes out of Bloomington, California, and we haul probably 5 or 6 semi loads a week. And so, if it'll fit in a semi trailer, we'll haul it. And mainly but we'll haul everything from bricks and Gatorade and tennis shoes and light bulbs. And you asked a question earlier, all that put together, we finished 2022 out just a little over 108 million in sales, which obviously that blows my mind. It's crazy to even say that, starting with, one '08 Dodge Dually to 108 million in sales. And then we have, we should be over 400 trucks, by April. And so, but man, if we can close the doors and put it in the back of the trailer, and it's got to be profitable, then we'll haul it.
I think you just burst some people's bubbles. I'm sure everybody thought those burritos were made right there at their neighborhood Allsup's, right?
Yeah, yep. All they're doing is throwing it in the grease and getting it hot. They sure are good though. But yeah, the famous Allsup's burrito. It's a good one.
You stress on your website how your drivers better be firing up the grill and mowing the lawn once a week at home. I think that says a lot, that you don't expect your drivers to be on the road for weeks on end, literally living out of their truck and parking at truck stops, during their downtime and all that. And yet you still managed to cover the entire lower 48. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that one thing, it's been, you and I were talking earlier, it's been 24 years since I had you, you had me in class, and one thing that I walked away from, getting my undergrad and then my MBA here at West Texas A&M was, you got to have a niche. And there's so many trucking companies you can go to work for. Anybody can enter that business. And so what we do is, and that's the reason, we're the largest trucking company to Denver, Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Albuquerque. And that's a pretty good area. And the reason why is because, we want guys to have a good lifestyle. And, our guys make $80,000 to $100,000. And those are guys that, might have graduated high school, right? And so they're making more than a lot of folks out there. But yeah, that's my slogan is, if you're not turning your grill on once a week and mowing your grass, what are you doing? And that's one thing that's grown our business is our competition in this town and all over the country. They have guys that live on the road 2 to 6 weeks at a time. And, these truck drivers who we love, man, they take care of us. We want to take care of them, and they go out a day, maybe 2, and they come right back. And instead of bouncing all around the country for 2 or 3, 4 or 5 weeks at a time, we bring them right back home to see their family. And that's been the biggest opportunity, and that's really our niche, and it's worked really well.
Many years ago, when our highway system was being built out, and I'm looking like a century ago, trucks were often last mile carriers. They hauled freight from the nearest railroad depot to customers where the railroad did not run. How is it today that trucks and rail are equally viable options for both long and short hauls?
I think that, you'll see, and obviously the railroad is our competitor, and so that's also the reason that we're in the fresh meat hauling business or the produce business. And so once again, going back to, we talked about our drivers and how we treat them being a niche, also the type of business that we're in and what we haul is our niche. I mean, you guys can see, we see Amazon now, and we see the blue trailers everywhere. Heck, we have an Amazon facility in Amarillo, Texas, and the rates are, and I'm not beating up on Amazon, but the rates are low. Well, it's just dry freight. I mean, they can put it behind a semi, or they can put it, on a rail. Well, it's a lot tough. It's a lot more difficult to, put a load of lettuce coming out of California that's got about a 2 to 5 day shelf life on a rail car that's going to take 5 to 10 days to get there. And so I've made sure that we try to hold our competitive advantage, being hauling that fresh product close to us and not deviate from that. And we've had calls, hey, you want to haul some windmill turbines? Like, you've seen wind farms be a big deal across the country, or whatever it might be, or automobiles. And I've always just, or the oil field, down in Odessa and Midland, and, very volatile area. And sometimes you see those opportunities and think they're the way to go. But I always tell myself, hey, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to eat breakfast. When 4 hours, I'm going to eat again. And then at 5 or 6, I'm going to eat again. And I've always just said, you know what? We need to make sure that we stay in that area of business that requires our truck and not some other form of transportation.
Trains can now run up to 16,000 feet in length, more than 3 miles long. I mean, I live by the tracks. I deal with this every day, getting stuck behind these massively long trains. And trucks, in comparison, are pretty pretty limited. I know it's kind of an apples to orange comparison, one tractor with its trailers versus a long train, but even still, in the states that allow doubles and those handful of western states that allow for triples going down the road, the amount of freight that you can haul per driver is, pretty much limited by length and weight considerations, and especially when it comes to things like bridges. You don't want to be falling through these things, and never mind the DOT and how many hours you can drive and all that. How do you and other trucking companies work to overcome those inherent limitations, especially on things like dry freight as opposed to fresh food?
Absolutely. Well, one thing again, it really just capitalizes on the opportunity to, to haul food and to haul fresh, very, very fresh food. And for example, there's, as I said earlier, there's 9 major meat packing plants in the area. It is what it is. There's cows walking in this morning and they're going to leave in a box this afternoon and it's going to go on our trailer. And that stuff's got to be there tomorrow, or maybe, worst case scenario, if we're going up into New York or Miami, maybe 3 days. And once it gets past that, then the product's going to go bad, and it's not going to work. And so that's the reason that these manufacturers will use a truck versus, like you talked about, versus a train. Whereas the dry freight, I mean, they're putting, again, you'll see, it's amazing to me how many Amazon traders you'll see on railcar, because the amount that they're able to haul it for is, I heard the other day it was like 30% of what, they pay a normal truck that's got one driver per one load. Now they can do one driver, two on a train per 100. So just got to make sure that we continue to capitalize on the fresh product, and that's what we're going to haul.
The interstate highway system is now more or less completely built out at 45,000 miles. And I know we occasionally hear of new efforts like to extend I-27 north of here so that it hooks up with Interstate 25 to the north, or to the south, below Lubbock, all the way down to I-10, I guess. But for the most part, the interstate highway system is done. And there's still countless thousands of other miles on the federal and state highways, but it seems like our highways are just getting more and more crowded. How are we all going to coexist? And I mean the royal we, people driving minivans and motorcycles. How are we all going to coexist when there are few plans to add to our nation's highways?
That's a great question that I absolutely don't know the answer to, but I'll tell you, I mean, it definitely causes problems. When we're going into, Dallas or Los Angeles or Houston or, Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever it might be, we have calls every week, like we offer one thing: be on time. That's all we have to offer. And we definitely see, and I kind of agree with what you're saying. I don't know if it's getting worse, but I mean, obviously, we have drivers, calling saying, "Hey, there's no way I'm going to make that on-time delivery because I'm stuck here in traffic for an hour and a half." Heck, I was in Dallas, Tuesday, and it took me an hour to go 15 miles. And so it's a great question, and as our government plans roads, and hopefully they try to look at ways to increase the amount of lanes there are, and that's about the only way that's probably going to work together.
Trucking has become so popular that about 11 billion tons are hauled by trucks each year, and that represents 72% of all freight. That's pretty good. We just think there are a lot of trains passing through Amarillo and Canyon, which there are, but it's trucks that are doing most of the heavy lifting. What's your prognosis on this for the future? Are you going to continue to chisel away at what the trains do and grab more than just 72%?
I mean, again, if we're, I think that, it seems like as time goes on, like, especially like with technology, we get smarter, and just as people in general, and they're always looking for, I mean, again, I like to talk about Amazon because I think it's ridiculously successful, and heck, I use it now because it's so easy. And at the end of the day, I mean, how do we, how do we keep that going? And again, I think it's just, and I've said it a few times, but again, if I was in the automobile hauling business, I mean, you continue to see, I have friends that are in that business, and they'll see that rates continue to get cheaper. Why? Well, I mean, it sounds like the railroad sales guys out there are doing a good job calling on them and telling them how much money they can save by putting on a rail, versus a truck. And I think that's one thing you'll see us do is I want to give them my secrets away here, but is capitalize on hauling fresh product, and I think that's what you'll continue to see. And but there's obviously CEOs and operations managers that are always looking for ways to haul it cheaper, and that's definitely something that we always battle and probably will continue to.
Not long ago, meaning like the last year or two, the U.S. suffered through major price increases in motor fuels, and diesel reached $6 a gallon or more in some parts of the country. And in some states, depending on taxes and so forth, there's up to a $2 differential per gallon between gasoline and diesel. And of course, trucks are running diesel, and the prospects of paying about $1 per mile become very, very real. How did you weather that storm?
That's I tell you, that's probably the biggest, greatest question you've asked so far. And I'll tell you, back in 08, 09, I mean, we were in the construction, equipment type business, hauling business, backhoes and cranes and forklifts. And we got to the point where, I was looking at our P&L each month and wondering if we are going to stay in business. And it got tight. It got very close. Almost so much that, and I'll just tell you, we've been in business 15 years now, and again, almost over $108 million in sales. Back in 08, 09, we almost had to close the doors. I mean, it made that much of an impact because at the end of the day, yes, obviously, there's a fuel surcharge when fuel goes up, and we operate on a national fuel surcharge, but we definitely felt it, and that's actually when we got into hauling food as a lot of that business went down. And you've seen it in the last year. I mean, heck, man, I'm driving in today and diesel's $4 a gallon. I mean, and so the economy hadn't fixed itself, from what it was, 2 or 3 years ago. And, it's, we have price increases with our customers. And then, I feel like people have less money right now with inflation. And so you've seen sales, across the country, come down as well. Like, again, is somebody going to buy a steak or are they going to buy chicken? And when incomes, when your dollar doesn't go as far, you continue to see, sales in those, higher end products, go down. And so, I saw the other day in California, I had a buddy of mine send me a picture, eggs, $8.99 for a dozen. And, and that's all. There's some other things going on with eggs right now, but a lot of the prices in the grocery store are elevated so much because of our fuel prices. And so, there's electricity's coming, electric trucks are coming on, and as well as autonomous trucks. And so those are two things that it's probably going to take 5 to 10 years, but there's definitely going to be ways that we try to overcome those high fuel prices. But at the end of the day, it's a price increase, and you hate to see that to the consumer, but that's just, it costs what it costs.
So, what's the future hold for the trucking industry? I mean, you've been very smart in latching on to an evergreen product category. No matter how bad the inflation is, we still got to eat.
That's right.
And so, food is always going to be hauled from A to B. They may not be selling as many widgets and thingamajigs and the discretionary or longer term products that we might like to buy, but food we got to eat. Do you see yourself finding more room for growth just in that, or are there some other evergreen niches that are kind of emerging?
Yeah, well, I think that, we will continue to haul. I mean, obviously, our government continues to throw out opportunities for, I mean, there's, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day that runs a local Budweiser distributorship, and they told me up in Denver, and he told me how many electric trucks they had on order. And, obviously that infrastructure is not in place today. I don't have a crystal ball on how long it takes. But, you'll continue to see us focus on food. And obviously, right now, the only way we're able to, or one way we're able to try to capitalize on what's going on in the economy is better fuel mileage. And so, if you have a truck that's 10 years old, you're probably getting 5 miles a gallon. Our trucks now are getting 7.5 miles a gallon. And so, again, I hear guys all the time ask, what are you going to do when electric trucks are here? I'm like, well, we're going to buy some. That's what we'll do. Obviously, there's not an infrastructure in place in the United States, for cars, kind of, they're working on it. But we'll continue to not get lazy and not think that the old way is the best way, because it's not. And we're always going to be on the cutting edge of trying to figure out a way to make a more cost-effective solution, because the trucking companies that are, national, that are 4, 5, 6,000 trucks, those are the guys we got to compete against. And they have a lot of smart guys running those operations. And so, we'll figure out ways to do, to haul the freight as most cost effective as we can so that we can offer a great price.
When we come back, we'll take a look at transportation in Amarillo and Shane's perspectives on growth opportunities in the city.
There's a reason why our programs are rated so highly by independent reviewers. We are committed to continuously improving what we do. Whether it is in the classroom or online, the Paul and Virginia Angler College of Business strives to stay ahead of the curve, not behind it. Join us in the classroom or online and see the difference. We're WCSB accredited and among the most elite business schools around the world. Reach for the stars and do it with a WT Business degree in hand. For more info, find us online at wtamu.edu/COB or call 806-651-2525. From the Texas Panhandle to the world, we are here to help you reach for those stars.
It's no secret that Amarillo exists because of the railroad. It was in the spring of 1887 that the Fort Worth and Denver City Railroad bisected the city from southeast to northwest, hence the name of the railroad, followed by what we know today as the ATSF, or what was the ATSF, from northeast to southwest, and then the Rock Island from east to west. I mean, think about that. We had rail coming in from 6 different directions. Of course, everything here today is now BNSF, and the Rock Island line has been ripped up. But were it not for the railroad, Amarillo likely would never have happened. It was inevitable then that it became a great cattle shipping town. And that was all before we had anything resembling highways, certainly not the kinds we have today. It's hard to argue with Amarillo's highway network now, which finds interstate highways and several federal highways all going off in every possible direction. I mean, we've kind of got our bases covered here with rail and pavement. And nationwide, the amount of trackage, though, is still only about 50% of what it was a century ago. Basically, trucks have filled the gaps. I mean, it's hard to believe that just 100 years ago, we had twice as many miles of track as we do now. How do you see Amarillo continuing to evolve as a transportation hub? Will rail and trucking continue to coexist, or will trucking emerge as the huge winner? And what about air transport? I mean, we do have one of the longest runways in the country. Do you see a 3-way split possibly? I mean, Amazon has a fleet of cargo jets too that they could just as easily be bringing in to take advantage of what I would consider a very underutilized airport.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, there's going to continue to be, the rail won't go away. I mean, even as it's decreased, I think one of the main reasons that you've seen the rail, the miles go away, as you talked about, the amount of tracks, is because we can't wait for anything, just like Amazon. We buy something because we can have it tomorrow. And always, one thing I tell customers sometimes is, I like to use FedEx, but I say we're not FedEx next day, we're FedEx same day. And so the truck can be same day delivery, and or it can be right the next morning. It takes a lot. Rail cars won't replace trucks when it comes to fresh product, the beef, beef and chicken and pork and those things. Now, again, they have frozen products. And so you see there's plenty of refrigeration that goes on rail car, because it's frozen. But, in my opinion, you'll see trucks always going to be there because we're always going to have stuff right now. We haul potatoes. For those of you, we've heard of In-N-Out Burger, and we haul potatoes from Dalhart, Texas, all the way out to Chino, California, where they process and cut, fresh, In-N-Out burger, French fries. So you're always going to see the truck, and I think, the truck's going to be there because we have to have the right now. We got to have it tomorrow. And then when it goes to air travel, obviously, it's, that's a balance, but it's expensive to fly an airplane. I'm a pilot, actually, and I know what it costs to operate, smaller planes, and the cost that it would take to move stuff. And we spend, $35 to send an envelope somewhere, via FedEx overnight. And so the cost will never be able to, to keep up with, with what products sell for when it comes to air travel. But it's 13,000 foot at Rick Husband Airport, 13,000 feet long. And so definitely allows for, for air travel to to constantly exist. But I think there's always going to be a place, really for all three of those to coexist.
And what's your range on let's say, a next morning delivery? How far can you go?
Yeah, we can go. So as you said, said earlier, 11 hours is what our guy can drive. So actually, a semi truck gets 14 hours a day, 11 hours of driving, and the other 3 hours used for taking breaks, going to the restroom, getting fuel and what have you. So, and that's a really fun thing to talk about when we talk about electric trucks. Obviously, the infrastructure is not across the, not built across the country, nor do they. I mean, they have them and they're testing them. We hired a guy the other day that's doing a run from Phoenix, Arizona to Houston, Texas with an autonomous truck. He sits in the left seat and he just sits there. This is happening right now today. And, he gets paid, and his job is just there in case he needs to hit the brakes pretty much or turn that truck if for some reason the technology failed. But, we have autonomous trucks right now, and they're going down the highway. And so Pepsi-Cola is doing a great job with that. So anyways, I mean, it's, there's different opportunities that you're going to see. But I think that it just, it's as time goes on, we see those continue to happen.
And how significant do you think that transportation, specifically freight, will be part of the local Amarillo economy? And after all, we're located right here along the 35th parallel. That has long been considered about as far north as you can go and still have pretty reliable year-round travel. There's a few places west of here, and sometimes we get snow too, but 35th parallel is a highly regarded place to be in the U.S. And so we've got abundant rail and highways and so forth. It seems natural to me. How much do you think our economy will continue to rely on freight as a moneymaker?
Well, I'll tell you. So, we just, put a partnership together, just really, an alliance with the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation, the EDC, and they continue to bring in so many companies. I mean, the Amazon is here because of the ADC and the Bell Helicopter. Those guys are just doing an amazing job. And, they shared a study with me the other day. They hired a company I think it was out of North Carolina, and said, what are the two things that Amarillo, will flourish in, man? And they said, transportation, or really logistics is what they said, along with food processing. And so, I don't know that I was that aware of how many beef packing plants that there were in this area. In Guyman, Oklahoma, 122 miles away, Seaboard Farms, one of our biggest customers. They're a pork producer. And then you have a cheese plant in Clovis, New Mexico. You have a cheese plant in Dalhart, Texas. You have a company here in Amarillo, Pacific Cheese. That, they produce the cheese for, Taco Bell and companies like that. And so it's only going to get better. And, again, because of where we're located, we have lots of water in depending on what side of the, Amarillo you're on, we have lots of water in the area. The climate isn't, like we're in Iowa or Nebraska where it just is crazy cold all the time. Agriculture is huge. I don't know how many areas there are like this where you have this many beef packing plants, and as much agriculture going on, as well as, milk and wheat and soybeans and all that. So it's only going to get better. I mean, obviously I said we're adding 52 trucks over the next, 60 days. And we wouldn't be doing that if sales were going down. And, obviously our goal is to, we're the largest trucking company in the area, and we want to keep it that way, but man, it's only going to keep getting better.
As an entrepreneur, you obviously see the world through a very different lens. And I'm certain you are constantly looking at situations and sizing them up for potential, even if they're things that you would never, actually do. What kinds of opportunities do you see emerging in Amarillo?
Obviously, as I said earlier, anything with agriculture, anything with logistics, and so there will continue to be, warehousing is going to be huge. I drive into Dallas, Texas, and it's amazing how many, I call them the Amazon, looking warehouses. They're not all Amazon, but there's just so many warehouses being built in the Dallas area. There's some huge opportunities in this area for cold storage. And so just to kind of give you a kind of a illustration, when, as I said, cows walk in the morning, they leave in a box in the afternoon. Well, they don't have enough storage space at these facilities, to store all this. And so you have out by the airport, we have Americold. All it is a freezer. All it's doing is products coming in, they're unloading trucks, and they're, a couple days go by and they're reloading them. So there are just going to be so many opportunities for, for warehousing is going to be huge. I hate to say it, but for more competitors, to come in because there's so much freight. And I have people call all the time and said, "Hey, we're going to work on your website for you so you can get more business." And I say, I have more business than I can handle. I don't need you to drive more to me. We have plenty, which is a great problem to have. And so anything to do in logistics or transportation are just going to be industries that are going to just going to be continue to rock in this area.
So is there an upper limit to what Jack's Transport can do here? You mentioned you have two places in town, one on the far south, one on the far north. Do you have enough capacity for future expansion, or would you have to look elsewhere?
We just made a deal with like I said earlier, with the AEDC. We bought 46 acres of land on the South Loop in Osage for our new facility, and so we've got a very large shop and an office, on the books right now to start building. And so there, I like, again, as you said, we're here to talk. You're talking about being an entrepreneur. Being able to not be scared of risk, which, is a big deal. And just, I go, again, I've got 52 trucks coming in pretty soon. Well, man, that's $10 million, of lease payments, and so that's a lot. And so, I feel like we can handle anything that's thrown at us. We've, been able to start with one truck in the time frame that we, 7 years ago, we had 55 trucks. So really went from 55 trucks in 7 years to almost 400. And so I think that we can handle probably anything that comes at us, and we go out and we're aggressive. And I spend a lot of time traveling. I'm going to Logan, Utah to meet with a customer next week, and then in that same day we'll probably see 3 different customers. We'll be in Utah, we'll be in Kansas City, and then we'll be in Kansas all in the same day, because of air travel. And man, there's just I'm excited about the opportunities, and we're not scared of anything. We're ready to tackle it.
What about population? I've been here a long time, you know that, 34 years now. The Panhandle has been probably the slowest growing region in the state, with the possible exception of like far west Texas before you get to El Paso, in the middle of the desert. We've grown about 16% in the last 3 censuses. That's 30 years. That's not a lot. And obviously that pales in comparison to the fabled triangle that connects Dallas-Fort Worth with Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. But here we are on a very busy transcontinental highway. What's your thoughts on this?
I'm glad I'm not in the production side of it. I continue to see, just in the last year, you have Amazon, you have a new company just right across the street from us called Consiki, which is the largest producer of chorizo, which is a Mexican meat, and all the Mexican cheeses. Cavaness just built a huge, Trevor and Cavaness is a friend of mine, and we're a very large carrier for them. Those guys, when they open a plant, I heard that, Trevor told me when he was opening his new plant, we're going to add 600 jobs. Well, to your point, if the people aren't coming here, what are we going to do? And so, Amazon opened up, and when that happened, one of our biggest customers, Affiliated Foods, they're a $1.7 billion grocery distributor. They service 700 stores in an 8-state area. We deliver all that freight for them. And so, I talked to the CEO, Randy Arsenal, when it opened, and he said, I'm a little nervous. They need 200-300 people over at Amazon. And so, here at the end of the day, what happens is we're having to pay more money. We were paying truck drivers $60,000 2 years ago, and I thought that was pretty good. You come to work for Jack's Transport tomorrow, you can be 21 years old and have 2 years of driving experience. You start out at $80,000, and you don't need a degree. And that's a lot of money, and so I think what you're going to, there's a new beef packing company that's coming in that was the beef producers, I think they're called, and they're going to have 600 jobs. This is going to continue to be a great place to live. And the amount of jobs in this area compared to lots of other cities are just going to continue to be a huge opportunity for people. And Amarillo's an amazing place to live. That's why I live here. I love it, and you're just going to see so many opportunities continue to come our way.
Yeah, I've heard it said from our director of the Small Business Development Center in a previous episode of this podcast that we're almost too successful. Our unemployment rate is so low that it's hard to lure more employers here if we don't have available workers.
That's right. Well, available workers. I mean, and here's the deal. I mean, there's, I see this happening in 55, 60 miles from here is Cactus, Texas, and then that's JBS Swift. And I think JBS Swift are Brazil, owned by Brazilians, and I think they're the largest beef producer in the world. And man, they have buses that show up in Amarillo, Texas every day, and they load their workers on buses and ship them 60 miles. I mean, think about that for a minute. Where is that happening, right? And so, and also again, we go back to housing. I mean, there's not enough housing here, and so, which really at the end of the day, they're great opportunities. They're great opportunity for construction. They're great opportunity for businesses. There's probably no other place that I'd rather be than Amarillo, Texas. Right now with the business opportunities that we have.
Do you have any trouble recruiting good truck drivers here in Amarillo, or do they just find you?
What we've had to do is pay more money, pay more benefits, and offer more benefits. And again, I mean, like our company policy is this. For those of you listening, if you're just a professional, then you probably work somewhere a year and then you get a week vacation, and you work there 2 years and you get 2 weeks vacation. In our company, you work 90 days, you get a week vacation, and then 6 months, you get a second week of vacation. I mean, what companies are doing that, right? And so, I mean, you're having to, pay the most money. We have a $10,000 sign-on bonus right now. So you put the $10,000 sign-on bonus with the $80,000, you start out at $90,000, working for us. And then we have some other freight that we haul going to the Allsup's convenience stores. Those guys make $90,000 plus a $10,000 sign-on bonus. So a guy who's 22, 23 years old can come to our company and he's making $100,000. Like, I mean, think about that 5 years ago. That's not even, the truck driver is somebody that they wouldn't, wouldn't be on the high priority list of a job to go after. And it's a tough one, but $100,000 that guy's making. So you're just having to, provide a great opportunity with benefits and an excellent pay. And that's the way we attract people.
So you mentioned 2 years experience. Of course, they have to have a CDL. What kind of experience do you want them to have had before you would look at them? I mean, driving a school bus is one thing, but driving a 53-foot long rig is quite another.
Absolutely. One thing that our community has done well, Amarillo College has a truck driving school here, and it's awesome. They're grooming new truck drivers, and we need that. Definitely not beating up on any new truck drivers, but no different than, when we're 16 years old, we're learning to drive. Sometimes we kind of, scratch a fender here and there because we don't have the experience. Well, we need, if you're going to come to work for us, because we're paying the most money, we have the, biggest benefit package. We have the nicest, newest equipment. We want someone who's been out there driving, a semi truck and a 53-foot trailer for 2 years. And I tried this, many years ago when we had taken on a big contract. Hey, if you come out of truck driving school, we were going to give you a job. And, we've been up a lot of bumpers. I'll just say that. Right. And so now, we've decided that it's better to just offer a bigger compensation package along with the quality of life that we offer these guys and ladies. And, and to make sure they have at least 2 years experience. So they're, taking care of the equipment.
We're very fortunate here in Amarillo to have a low cost of doing business. Heck, it's a low cost of living as far as I'm concerned. While the price of everything has gone up everywhere, we're usually always behind that curve, even with fuel. I mean, compared to the rest of the country right now, our gas is pretty cheap compared to big parts of the country, and so I can't complain. How does all this work to your advantage as a businessman, especially compared to businesses like yours in other areas?
I have, it's because fuel here is, $3.80, $4 a gallon right now versus $6.50, $7 a gallon in California. We have guys that'll call us, and ladies that'll call us and, looking for a job, and they'll ask what we pay, and then they'll say, well, is that all you're paying? I'm like, we're paying almost $100,000. What do you mean? Well, I mean, do you realize what it costs to live in California? Because you can live anywhere, with us, and say, I'm like, well, maybe you should move to Amarillo. And so, I believe that it's the kind of the formula there is because our cost of living is so low. It allows us to be competitive, with other companies, that maybe we're competing against in Dallas or in Atlanta or in Salt Lake City or California. And so it's amazing to me. You look at what houses are selling for a square foot here versus some of those other cities, and we do have a huge advantage, because our cost is less, and so it is a great opportunity.
Shane, what words of advice can you give to budding entrepreneurs wanting to launch a business in Amarillo, anywhere, trucking or not trucking?
Yeah, I was speaking here at West Texas A&M a few months back, and I met a lot of people who said, they were 21 to 23 years old. I want to start my own business. And I said, okay, well, what have you been doing? Where have you been working? And, through college, we do the little, whatever kind of jobs we can to get by. And what I tell most people that are that age, I'm like, hey, listen, don't take offense. You don't know anything about running a business. So, you know what? Find out an industry that you love and go work in that industry 5 years. Go work in it 10 years, whatever it takes, and learn everything you can about it and find a company that's doing a great job of it. And then if you decide you want to own your own business, don't go off and set yourself up to fail because you're trying to figure out, how to operate a business. Once you understand how to operate someone else's business and do it successfully, well, then you're probably primed to go out and do it on your own. And so I told a girl that the other day. I said, you're only 22 years old. Don't take this wrong, but in my opinion, if it's a year or if it's 10 years, whatever it is, go get really good at that business, and then you can go start your own. And that's probably the biggest takeaway, for me.
What is life like being very busy? I know you're just a blur, but you're also very successful as an entrepreneur. Do you have time to have a life?
What's funny is I probably have more fun than anybody I know, and because I'm a pilot. I get to fly in a little plane, which I call it my time machine. And my wife asked me the other day. I've been married 22 years, and she said, hey, our daughter's celebrating her 22nd birthday, and we're going to go to wherever. Do you just want to come in for the normal 3 days? And I said absolutely. And I love working. I have 5 other businesses besides the trucking company, and I love it. And and I'm not the guy that works 70 hours a week. I mean, I probably, I get up at 4:30 every day, and I probably go to bed at 9:30 at night, and I get a good night's sleep. And I'm not Donald Trump, who says you can make it on 4 hours a day. So I probably get to have more fun than anybody I know. And I make sure, usually Monday morning, I'll ask my son or, a couple guys that are my friends, and I'll say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Then they'll say, it's Monday morning. I'm like, I know, we got to start planning. And so, the last 3 weekends I've been riding snowmobiles in Park City, Utah, and we're just having a lot of fun. And I think that's, the thing that everybody's got to remember is it's not about working 80 hours a week. And if that's what you're doing, that's not the plan, And so obviously, it took me, when I first got started, I was working, 12 to 15 hour days, and that's, everybody's got to be ready for the grind. I hear guys call me every now and then, and they'll say, man, I've been doing this for 2 years, and my wife's upset because I'm having to work so much. And I'm like, well, then you know what? You probably ought to go do something different. It's a 10-year grind. And if you're not ready for a 10-year grind, you're probably not cut out to be an entrepreneur. And that's okay. You can work for somebody else. But it definitely, anything worth having doesn't come easy, right? And so, but I definitely have a great time, and I've definitely learned, how to have a great, life-work balance.
When we return, we'll let Shane explain more of the non-business side of his life.
The demand for professionals in data analytics and information systems far exceeds the supply, which is why the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business developed the Masters of Science in Computer Information Systems and Business Analytics degree program. Already, external reviewers have ranked it among the highest IS programs in the nation. We are an AACSB accredited college and among the most elite business schools around the world. Available completely online, this program will help you transform businesses and propel them far into the 21st century. Data mining, data analytics, and data science are keys to your success, and we provide the key to unlock your future. Reach for the stars with a West Texas A&M Masters in Computer Information Systems and Business Analytics. For more info, find us at wtamu.edu/cob or call 806-651-2500. From the Texas Panhandle to the world, we're here to help you reach those stars.
Shane, I recall that before you got too embroiled in the trucking company, you were involved in motorsports. Can you tell us more about that?
I grew up, riding dirt bikes just for fun, and motorcycles, and then all through, even though I worked probably 50, 60 hours a week for 5 years at a place called Sharps Motorsports. It was a Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, KTM dealership here in town, and I rode motorcycles. I raced dirt bikes, motocross, and that kind of has always been something that I've loved to do. And so, and it's kind of funny is my mind is one of the first questions you've asked talking about the entrepreneurial spirit. Well, when I was in college, I was racing dirt bikes, and I went up to the guy that ran the motocross track, and I said, "Hey, you think your announcer's not doing a very good job? Why don't you let me do that? What are you paying him? I'll do it for half." And that was just something that's ingrained in me. And so, and it might be at a go-kart track or a BMX track, and having those announcing jobs. And so I've always been around motorsports. It's always been something that's been very fun to me. And we've gotten as big. I raced the Baja 1000 in November this last year. So motorsports has definitely been a big part of my life.
Yeah, I saw this on Facebook. I consider that probably the most interesting aspect of you, racing the Baja Peninsula. I mean, that just is mind-boggling. It's insane for, the rest of us flatlanders out here to think of going to a foreign country and then doing some crazy race through the desert. I mean, you got to tell us more.
It's my son and I. He started racing motorcycles when he was 4 years old, and his name is Shane Redline. If you ever heard of a racing name, there's one right there. And so, when Baja was always a big deal to me, and it was always like this. It's almost like for people that like to climb mountains, it's like Mount Everest. It's in Baja is our Mount Everest. And we started racing about 5 years ago, and these little bitty, like a Polaris RZR or a Can-Am Maverick, and then we just kept on going. It was always this, the Baja 1000 is the hardest off-road race in the world, and we've raced 4 of them now over the last 4 years, and then 5 Baja 500s. And imagine we did this last year. Imagine getting in a truck and racing it for 29 hours without stopping. And there's some people that solo it. We would have multiple drivers, and it was just a blast, and we've continued to do it. And I think that ties right back into one of the questions you asked earlier, is having the work-life balance. People you can't just grind and go home at 5 and or 7 or whatever time it is and fall apart and need to go to sleep. You got to have some fun. You got to have something to look forward to. And I think that's one of the things that's driven me the most is knowing that there's some fun on the horizon.
So did you have a support crew, a chase vehicle? I mean, you had to refuel. You couldn't carry enough fuel in this Polaris for 1,000 miles.
Yeah, and actually, the last Baja 1000 we just did, I actually raced it on a motorcycle. And so, we had 6 riders. We had a helicopter follow us, which I actually flew that part of the race after I got off the bike. And then and my son actually was racing a truck, and so we had a truck and a motorcycle class. Totally separate, he's over on doing his deal, and we had 7 Ford F-250s that are our chase crews, and we had 47 people, and the race was 1,229 miles long, and took about 29 hours, and those experiences are some of the most amazing memories that I'll ever have. And so, yeah, it took a big, huge support crew to make it happen.
So you're doing this day and night.
Absolutely, yeah. You started, the motorcycles. You can look at my Instagram page, Redline Shane, and you'll see there's me, at the start of the Baja 1000 at 2:00 in the morning, and taking off into the dark, which is crazy. And some of my, the guys I've done business with, my bankers, are like, "Hey, you're living a little bit crazy. I don't think you need to be out doing that kind of stuff." And I'm like, well, that's I appreciate you saying that, but we're gonna do it, And it's been a blast, and day and night, and it's I remember there was another race we had one time where I spent the night in the desert, at 29 degrees, wondering if I was gonna, make it through the night. I mean, it's just crazy stuff, but but that's definitely what drives me to be an entrepreneur and to just try to hammer down and really capitalize and make business happen.
So what's the start finish of these races?
Yeah, so at the Baja 1000, it's called a point-to-point race, and so you start. We all know where San Diego, California is, so across the border, go 90 miles south into Baja, and we go to Ensenada, California, or Ensenada, Mexico, and so start there, and that race you finish in La Paz, Mexico, which is about 150 miles north of Cabo San Lucas. And someone asked me today, man, that's a long ways. And I said, yeah, we did 1,229 miles. And if you want to know how far that is, go to Los Angeles, California. And we had a dirt bike team and the truck team that did this, but go to Los Angeles, California, and get on your motorcycle or your truck and drive it to Tulsa, Oklahoma nonstop. And that's how far 1,229 miles is. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah, except you were off road, not on the super slab.
Absolutely, yeah. There's hardly any slab in there, so it's dirt and off road and cactus and it's just an unbelievable experience, and that's crazy.
And how did you navigate? I mean, were there markers, signs, anything along the way, or are you playing with GPS and so forth?
Yeah, we have the Garmin Montana. We got GPS that take us along through there, and then in our truck that we had that my son drove, you have what's called the Lowrance. It's a big old 11-inch screen that's got all the waypoints, and we would spend 2 or 3 weeks out in the desert practicing. And so when you're driving at night, we don't go into it blind. We divide the sections up, and we go out, and a guy's he does his 100 or 200 miles, and he knows where every cactus is, where every hole is, where the cliff is. He's going to run off in the ocean, and you've got to know that stuff, or otherwise bad stuff happens.
Wow. I mean, I could see it being easy to just say, we're done. We're going to go down to Cabo and party with Sammy Hagar, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and you see that, you about 65% of the people finish. And it becomes, you have mechanical issues. At the last race we did, we had a transmission go out, and they changed it out. And the guys in the F-250s, right, the support team that we were so appreciative of, and they changed out a transmission. And then maybe 600 miles later, they had an axle go bad, so they're changing out the axle. And so it's definitely a feat of overcoming and dedication and not quitting. Almost kind of like being an entrepreneur, I guess.
So we hear about the hazards or the dangers of driving over into Mexico from the U.S. We hear all the bad things. Were you ever afraid in the Baja of those same types of things that we hear about in the news here?
Baja California, as they call it, which is really Baja, Mexico, right? And so it's from San Diego to Cabo San Lucas. It's definitely different than mainland Mexico, right? In mainland Mexico, you hear about murders and you hear about drug cartels. And, the only way that pretty much Baja California exists, they're not producing any agriculture. They're not, producing they don't have factories. The only way that Baja California, really makes it, is because of tourism. And so those guys know that the only way we're going to keep going is to make sure that our tourists are safe, and so it's really not an issue. And when I tell my friends I'm going, man, they well, golly, I hope everything works out. And an organization that we are a big part of is called Casas por Cristo. And I'm heading to next weekend to Juarez, Mexico, on a mission trip, and we're going to build a house in about 3 days. And some of my friends said, have you seen the news, what's going on in Juarez, Mexico? And it's a pretty dangerous area, but, you just stay in the right place and hang around the right people, and usually, everything's going to be okay, in my opinion.
So last thing, what are your plans for the future? Not business. I mean, I think we already know where you're going with that, but pleasure and fun. I mean, do you have any other crazy adventures planned, like Baja, something bigger, faster, longer? What about it?
So recently, I'm definitely a guy that likes change, and I get kind of bored. I think some people that have, that are good entrepreneurs might have a little ADD in them. We got to be doing something all the time. And I didn't say everybody, but I said some. And so I've gotten into snowmobiling. And so, I've been riding snowmobiles, like I said, up in Park City, Utah, the last 3 weekends. And I'm heading to Revelstoke, British Columbia in 2 weeks to go snowmobiling. And we've got 3 of those trips planned. And again, one thing I've learned about myself is, there's I had a buddy of mine ask the other day. He said, "What do you think's wrong with my business?" And he's been in business probably 3 or 4 years. This is another tip: is one of the biggest failures I've seen in business is absentee ownership. And so you start making a little bit of money, and you think you can go head to Florida, go to Destin, Florida every weekend. Well, you got to get some good strong legs underneath your business, get a good foundation. And one thing I've learned is once the business can run the same way it does with you without you, well then, hey man, then it's time you can take off. But until that day comes, you need to stay there. And that's one thing why I usually do 3-day trips. I'll leave on a Friday and I'll come back Sunday night, because I love doing business, and the business obviously runs better, when you're there, even if it's just checking on folks and talking to, the different people that work for you. And so, but we got British Columbia coming up, and we won the biggest thing, and it's taken a while for it to get to this point, but people do business with people that they like. And so we've gotten to the point now when we can take our customers and do things. And so we love to, we've taken guys to, hunting in Colorado, or we've taken them down to Key West to go barracuda fishing. The best of both worlds is how do we go and have a good time and get to write it off also on our taxes, and that's by hanging out with your customers. And so that's been a huge opportunity for us, and so we get the best of both worlds.
Our guest today has been Shane Redline, 2-time WT grad and founder of Jack's Transport in Amarillo. Oh, and global adventurer. Give us your best shot, Shane.
One thing I'd tell you is you got to be dedicated. You got to stay driven. Go to bed early, wake up early, and, just stay super focused, and don't give up. And I think that's the main thing that we haven't done. We don't give up. We're going to say yes to everything, and we're going to make it happen, and just stay true to what you believe.
You've been listening to Buff Speak from the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business at West Texas A&M University. Our executive producer is Justin Lovell, and Allison Hunter is our associate producer. Our co-editors are Maverick Evans and Paul Torres. Lindsay Bjork is our Director of Marketing and Outreach Initiatives, which includes overseeing Buff Speak. Dr. Jeffrey Babb is Director of Accreditation and is our technical consultant. Finally, Dr. Amjad Abdalat is Dean of the college. You can find us online at wtamu.edu/COB for more information about our programs. Be sure to check out our many academic offerings. Come for the quality, stay for the small classes, affordable tuition, and friendly, approachable professors. And look online at our faculty blog, profspeak.com, for more insights. You can listen to Buff Speak on your favorite podcast portal, as well as on our website, buffspeak.biz. And if you like what you've been hearing, don't be afraid to share us with your friends, colleagues, and family. Word of mouth has always been the best form of advertising. Until next time, love one another. For the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business at West Texas A&M University, I am Dr. Nick Gerlich. And as always, go Buffs! Buff Speak,